Hello, hello, and happy Taco Tuesday. It's my favorite day of the week, and we are officially back from spring break, which I always think it's funny when, you have like these differing weeks between different school districts, sometimes even within the state, and like other places, they'll be like, oh, well, we just got back from spring break, while other people are just now starting spring break. I don't understand how this works. I don't know why we can't come to a consensus on when everybody should go on spring break, but I guess it's probably a good thing, right? Like for tourism purposes, you don't want everybody going to Cancun spring break at once, which is funny because I've never actually done that, but I saw a really funny meme. There's a car alarm going off. Scared me. I was like, what did I hit? What is happening? You probably can't even hear it. It's pretty faint, but I'm like, what is that noise? I've heard this alarm a few times today. So maybe something's going on with their car. But y'all, it's Taco Tuesday. Hello. Welcome. So happy that you're here. We have Rita. Thank you for joining us. As always, Rita, she always brings a little sassiness and something fun to the mix. But I want to tell you something real fast. You can't see it as bad here. Y'all, I went in the wilderness. We'll call it the wilderness over spring break. We went to Possum Kingdom State Park, which is in North Texas. It was so beautiful. We had a blast. I went tent camping for the first time in 20 years. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've voluntarily slept outside, and let's just be honest. Like, okay, tent camping today is still like we bought a new tent for this. There was lights in our tent. Like not lanterns, like, oh, let's hang up a lantern. No, there was lights built into the lining of our tent, and there was even a light switch. Like, I die laughing because I imagine because I have friends and one of my brothers is like a super outdoorsman and he could literally like shove some clothes in a backpack, take a sleeping bag and sleep under the stars and, roam the wilderness for several days. He's a fisherman and he knows how to hunt. Like he would be totally fine. We are not those people when we live the outdoors life. Yeah, we're not as roughing it as I like to say as I used to be. I used to be more. Now I really enjoy air conditioning and I enjoy not getting burned by the sun. Anyway, all that to say, I was outside for multiple days, didn't get sunburned once. Not at all. We were literally out there for 5 days, 4 nighs, outside, getting fresh air, going hiking, all the things. I come back and I take my kids to the park for like an hour and a half, and I get sunburned. And it's still like, it's like one side specifically, like this side isn't as bad. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just getting caught up. This is what happens in the first few minutes of our live streams. If you've never joined us live, I typically will catch you up on the latest and greatest and what's happening. And yeah, I got sunburned and I'm like trying not to, now I'm like super conscious of it. I keep moving my hair out of the way. And when I do that, I'll scratch myself. So I'm like, oh yes, there is still a sunburn there. Okay, let's talk about what we came here to talk about today. And that's content creation. Y'all, if you're watching, first of all, tell us where you're watching. Tell us in the comments. If you're watching on the replay, tell us there. I always love to see where everybody is from. But if you have specific questions today, type a Q in front of them. That just lets me know that this is a question and not just a comment as part of the conversation. And I would be happy to answer your content creation questions. We have been talking a lot more about strategy of batching and repurposing. It was really fresh on my mind as I was getting prepared to go out of town. So let's talk about this for a second because I was totally off the map, we'll call it, for I guess it was 6 days, 5 or 6 days, where the cell service, y'all, I knew it was going to be spotty. I knew it was going to be like hit or miss anytime you go to an area that's super just out in the middle of nowhere. But also when and everybody always makes fun of me. All my friends that don't live in Texas, when I say this word, I'm aware of it now because I always stop and make a comment of it. There's hills everywhere. Like hills, mountains, but I call them heels. And my friend, this is really a shout out to Kathy, who she always, anytime I say heels, we got to climb those heels. And on the podcast, she always comments and says, I love it when you say heels. I'm like, well, I don't know any other way to say it. And then obviously I get in my own head about it whenever I start talking about it. But anytime there's mountains, hills, it's spotty cell service. And I was just disconnected for a long time. I read most of a really big book. It's Memoirs of a Geisha. I've been wanting to read it forever. I wanted to read a fiction book. I need to finish it, but I got at least halfway through and it's so good. I did a lot of just hiking, getting in touch with nature. We did some fishing. I didn't catch anything, but I mean, it's okay because nobody else really did either. So that was fine. But I really just wanted to disconnect from the constant connection of the digital worlds, and I succeeded, and it was great. But now I'm coming back into it. Today's actually the first day back. The kids didn't have school yesterday either, so it's the first day like really back into working. And one, I missed it. I always miss like coming back into this. This is our first live stream that we've done since we were on vacation. I did miss our live stream. It's funny because I have a reminder on my calendar that popped up and it was last Tuesday and it said, all right, 10 a.m. in 30 minutes, or it would have been 9:30 a.m. at 10 a.m. Like, here's your reminder. You should get ready to go live. And I was like, oh, we're not gonna have our live stream today. It made me a little sad because I always love our live streams. So I did miss y'all. Hi, Bob. So happy to see you. Bob's here from Vermont. Yes, happy that you're here. But it was just so great to disconnect, to really just take a step back and disconnect from the content because, and I advise this for anybody that feels like they're on that hamster wheel, because coming back to it today, I feel like I see things with fresh eyes that I didn't have in those last, I mean, probably 7 days before we actually left for our vacation. I was batching. I was just recording like podcast episodes, YouTube videos. I was making sure I had images and graphics and pictures, like everything that I needed. I was writing emails. I was getting ideas out because I was like, okay, whenever I'm gone, I really want to be gone. I want to be present with my family. I don't want to be, oh my gosh, I got to run into town, which, by the way, town for where we were was about an hour away. So I didn't want to say, oh, I have to miss out on something because I need to run in and make sure my Instagram post gets posted. No, I don't miss any of that nonsense. None of it. So you have two options. If you're planning to go out of town, you can just ghost everybody for a while, which a lot of people do, and that's fine. Like I don't honestly think there's anything wrong with it. If it's for a short period of time, if it's 6 months and then you come back and you're like, where'd my audience go? Well, they forgot about you. Sorry, they forgot about you. They haven't heard from you in a month. Then it's likely that they're already like you're in the very back burner of their brain, which from a marketing standpoint isn't a good thing. But also, if you need to take a little time, take a little break. Take a little break from your content. Do it. It's fine. But just come back. Just come back. Come back once you've got it all figured out. This is something that we were talking about last week, actually, in one of the podcast episodes. We had a question in a live stream. It was our last live stream that we did before we went on vacation. But it was, how do I come back? How do I get back into it? And I'm like, rip off the Band-Aid. Just start showing up again. Just, hey, I always think about, if let's say you're part of an organization, this is actually really cool. I did this for a few years. We live in the Houston area. And there's a lot of really cool clubs and organizations. And this was really before I started podcasting. We had just moved here. I was still into writing and journaling. And I thought, I'm going to join a writing club. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and join like other people, other writers that are people who are trying to get published. They want to get better. They want to find an editor. They want to find an agent. Like it was a really great group of people that I found. And they would meet, I think it was once a month or maybe twice a month. And so I went to a few of the meetings and then I stopped going for a while. because I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this. I was just really trying to figure out where I should go, like what should be the next step in my journey. And whenever I took a break and then I went back, I was like, oh, these are the parts that I really love about this organization and what they're doing. It's like I knew why I was there whenever I took a step back. And sometimes this is what happens with your content, right? If you get on this hamster wheel of just, I'm creating, I'm creating, I'm creating, you're like, why am I doing this? What is actually happening here? Or you get in the cycle of believing that you have to do things the way you've always done them, or you have to do things the way you see other people who are successful doing them. It's why people come to me and they say, I want a podcast like Pat Flynn. I want show notes like Amy Porterfield. I want to have a business like, I mean, just name 1,000 people that you could insert, like a popular person who's in the online space that you would want to have your content be like. But at the end of the day, it's usually not sustainable. It's usually not. It's usually something that they do their content their way for a reason. And if you are trying to mimic them or trying to copy them exactly, it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows, because it's not you. It's not your content and the way that really works into your life and your schedule and how your audience, like, this is another thing. Like, a lot of people don't take into consideration that just because that works for one type of audience doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for your audience. So John has a question. I said, I took a step back. Now, how do I go forward? Great question. This is exactly, so there's a few different ways that you can approach easing back into your content or just jumping in head first. If it has been a while since you've published, whether it's your YouTube videos, a podcast, a blog, your email list, like, let's just think about content as a global, any type of content. There are two really specific ways that I have done this myself. One, you relaunch, you make it a big deal. And this is really more for someone that's rebranding. So if you just took a step back, but you're coming back into it and you're not changing anything, just jump right back in. Just jump in. Like, there's still going to be, maybe your audience has shrunk since you've been gone because you haven't been posting consistently. That's okay. It's totally fine, because the people that really want to hear from you are still going to be there, and they're still going to say, "Hey, John's back. So happy to see him. What's he got going on now? What is he up to? I want to go see what type of content they're publishing now." But if you are changing directions, this is a little bit different. I rebranded my podcast back in 2019. And in that process, it was a very clear pivot. I was going to say like 180. Like, it was a very clear direction change that I wanted to make, but I wanted to keep the existing audience. So I didn't want to just shut down shop and start something new, because I thought, man, these are the people that are asking me these questions about podcasting. So I should start my next podcast on the same platform, but it's going to be rebranded, because I was no longer talking about what I was specifically talking about in my first podcast. So I set a launch date. I was like, okay, when is the date that I'm going to make this change, make this pivot? And that is like the deadline, the concrete, this is when things are going to change. So if you are watching this, listening to this, and you have a very distinct pivot that you're making, that you're changing in your content, then set a launch date and launch it like it is a brand new thing, but it may not be necessarily. It's just something that you're coming back to. So good question. Let me know if that clears up anything. But yeah, just rip off the Band-Aid. Rip off the Band-Aid and start publishing again. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way that you can come back into your content. I just recommend you do. I hope that you do, because I think it's fun, y'all. Content creation. I've been talking to a lot of people lately about what content creation means for them. And it sounds like, and this is me projecting here right now, of course, because this is what I typically do. I'm projecting my point of view. But content creation for me is a way for me to share something that I'm passionate about, the message that I like really enjoy, and I can share it with other people who are just as enthusiastic about it. Or I can find those people. This was always like a big thing is people would tell me, I don't think that there's anybody else out there that loves this specific weird niche thing that they were talking about. And I'm like, you'd be surprised. You would be very surprised. I never knew that there were other people out there that wanted me to nerd out on content creation and repurposing and batching. I'm like, I love to talk about this stuff. Are you kidding me? And then there's people that actually want to hear and learn from me and see what I do and have me share behind the scenes and have me give demonstrations and examples. Like, this is my jam. This is what makes me so excited. And so don't give up on your idea just because you think like, oh, it's so specific. It's so narrow. I promise you, there are other people out there that love to nerd out. Y'all, whenever I found my podcasting peeps, oh, like they're my ride or dies now. Like I have people in the industry that are constantly we have voice memos back and forth and we talk about, "Oh my gosh, did you see that Apple just released that you're now going to be able to see followers in, Podcast Connect?" If you didn't know that, that was just released today. Like it's when I heard about it this morning. And so it's just being able to nerd out about those things that I am super passionate about with other people that are just as excited to talk about it. So yeah, there's my little nerdy rant on finding your people and sharing your message and just keep going. Y'all keep going. It's why the motto around here is keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. I highly encourage you today, if you're in that weird space of trying to figure out my content and what I'm doing, then just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Darren says, when should you repurpose your content? Great question. So, Darren, I would love to know what type of content you're creating currently and what you want to repurpose it to. Because a repurposing strategy will look different for everybody depending on the type of content you're creating right now and how much easier it'll be. Because obviously, it would be much easier to go from video to repurposing that to audio as opposed to the other way, because if you don't record video with your podcast content, you're going to actually have to go and create it. But when it comes to videos, if that's something that you're already creating, it tends to be a little bit easier to go that direction. But it really, I mean, who knows, if you've published 200 podcast episodes, then that's pretty easy to go like dig through that information and really look at what's performing. So the question is when, right? When should you repurpose? My advice is, if you are starting, let's pretend you have nothing, you've never created any kind of content, I recommend 3 months. Give yourself a solid quarter of the year to create content in one specific platform, whether it is a podcast, a blog, a YouTube channel, email marketing, social media, whatever it is. But give yourself a solid 3 months, 90 days of creating content for one specific platform. Because after those 90 days, you'll be able to go in and see what's working. You can see, well, when I posted this, did people engage with it? Or whenever I published this video, did they actually watch it to the end? And when I did this podcast episode, which one was the most popular and got the most downloads? When I sent this email, how many unsubscribers did I have? Like you will actually have some metrics when you've done something for 90 days, as opposed to, oh, I published 5 podcast episodes and I don't know, like it's just not enough information. So that would be my recommendation. So my content is on purpose. What type of content though are you actually creating though? Are you doing video, audio, blog post, social media? Tell me what type of content that you're creating. And then we can kind of go from there. But I hope that answered your question. I think that 90 days is a solid like benchmark for creating that content and then going back and looking at what performed really well And then you can decide, did I have fun creating that? Do I want to continue to talk about that? How can I really go about repurposing this? Okay, so it's a podcast. Okay, so this is great. I would recommend, so 90 days, if you were to publish one episode a week over 90 days, I'm trying to do math in my head and this is not working really well. So to be like 12 episodes, which I think would be great. I think 12 episodes is plenty of information. And really, that is kind of the benchmark for if you're going to be consistent. If anybody's watching this and you don't know this about podcast, the number is significantly dropped for how many podcasts are out there that only have so many episodes. It used to be if you could get to episode 15, then you've made it over the hump of, okay, like you're going to continue to be consistent. But y'all, I think that number is like 7 now. It like dropped so much. So if you can keep going with your podcast and get past that 7th episode, then you're more likely to be consistent. Isn't that sad? Like there's so many podcasts. So out of the 2 million plus podcasts, there's at least 500,000 that are out there that haven't published anything new after their 7th episode. And it makes me so sad to think about. So I'm glad that y'all are here. I hope that this is like encouraging and you can keep coming back for strategies and all the things that we talk about here, because this is what I'm trying to get you to make it past that initial, just getting it out there. Let me see. Okay. Do you offer personal coaching? Brandon, I do. You can go to crystalprofit.com and reach out that way, or you can send me an email. I'd be happy to, go like we can chat about it. I offer a few different approaches to getting your content created and up and running. So you can feel free to send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email. You'll find all that information on crystalprofit.com. Good question. Oh, yes. He's already 13 episodes in. He's like, I'm already 13. Okay. So Darren, we're going to go back to your repurposing question. So you're 13 episodes in. Tell me what you're wanting to repurpose to. Are you wanting to do video? Are you going like trying to do show notes in the form of like blog posts? Tell me more about what you're actually wanting to create with your repurposing. And we can kind of walk through and talk through what you're trying to achieve. And Anthony, I see that you have a question up here, but it's really, really long. So if you can condense that, Anthony, I think you're in the Facebook group, maybe you're on our Facebook page, but condense your question a little bit and then we can make sure and get that up here today. But yeah, Darren, tell me what you're thinking about for repurposing. Tell me what your ideas are and we can kind of go. I know, Amy, it's so sad that there's all these podcasts that are out there, and for whatever reason, which I know there's a multitude of reasons of why someone starts something and then they don't come back to it or they're not able to. So I do understand that, but also like I'm your fairy content godmother. I just want to see everybody creating content and it be easy and fun and they enjoy it and it fulfills them and their creativity is something they can put out into the world. So, but yeah, it does. It breaks my heart. Okay, Daniel has a question. My uncle saw the outline in my first episode and said I have a few etc. sentences. How do I fix this? He also liked a long intro that dad suggested to me, so I need to fix that too before I record. Okay, so Daniel, these are lots of great questions. Here's my advice for getting advice from family members or just friends, family, people that are trying to see you succeed. Ask yourself a few questions first. One, are they your ideal listener? Are they someone that would actually find this podcast on their own and they had no idea who you are and they would tune into this? It's something of interest to them. I have a great example. My brother, who is the outdoorsman we talked about earlier, loves fishing. And he was talking to me one day about, like, I think I want to do a YouTube channel about fishing. And he was telling me this idea about what he could do to show them how to tie these specific knots and all this. And I was like, I have no interest in this. I'm not I am not your ideal audience at all. I have zero interest. I'm not a fisherman. Like I have somebody else like put the lure on, like take the fish off. Like I just want to sit there and cast. I want to cast and reel it in. This is the type of fisherman I am. And so I just let him know, like, hey, I'm not your ideal audience. So I will give you my feedback, but just know that I would never watch this YouTube channel because I have no interest in watching whatever it is that you're talking about. So that is question number one. Like, are the people that you're asking advice from going to be in your ideal audience? And it's okay if they're not, but it kind of takes the weight off of their advice and what they're giving to you, where you can say, okay, I'll take their perspective, but I also know that they aren't my ideal audience. So kind of take everything with a grain of salt. Don't let it weigh so heavy on, I have to change everything because one person said that they would prefer it this way. So that's first thing to consider. The second thing is, he said you have a few, like, how do I fix this? He also said the intro. Oh, he liked the long intro. So again, this is like where you have to figure out what's going to work best for you. My recommendation is to start producing and creating content first, then get that outside perspective. And, maybe you get a little bit of feedback from your audience. Maybe it's people you know, maybe it's people you don't really know. But then you have to kind of sit with all this feedback and say, what do I want? Like, what do I want to create? Because at the end of the day, that's really what's most important, that you're creating something that you really enjoy creating and you know it's going to serve your audience. Like, this is where that sweet spot is. You enjoy it, your audience is going to like it. Like, this is what we're shooting for. So I hope that helps. Let me know. But yeah, let me know if that answers your question, Daniel. Brandon says, thank you. I have a podcast as well. My issue is that in person, I'm a very descriptive talker when I'm on the phone or talking to a friend. But the moment I press record, it all goes away. Brandon, you are not alone. You are not alone in this. All right. So this is advice for Brandon and anybody else that has this, because this has happened to me as well. Like what I do today, like me just being able to sit here and talk off the cuff, this is 5 or 6 years in the making, like into my journey. So when you do hit record and you're like everything, like either it all just exits your brain or you can't find the words to articulate what you're trying to say, my recommendation is, and it's really awkward, especially if you're recording solo, like nobody else is there. There's no interview. It's just you and your microphone and you're in a room by yourself and you're like, this is weird. I normally am able to talk to people, but this just feels really awkward, because it is. It's very, very awkward when you're first in a room by yourself with just a microphone and you're like, so I just do I start talking now? Is this the right time? Or no, I need to hang on. I got the sniffles. I gotta clear my throat. I need to take another drink and then I can start talking. Like there's so many weird things that happen. So this is my recommendation. Record something, stop it, throw it away. Record something, stop it, throw it away. And I know this sounds very time consuming, counterproductive, and something you're like, wait, so I'm just wasting my time. You are not wasting your time. The reason why I tell people to do this is because typically it's the comfortability behind the microphone that is just, it's eating you alive. It's just getting comfortable. Maybe it's you need to find the right way to sit. Like I'm in a office chair right now. It's pretty comfortable, but I have a bigger, like comfier, cushy chair over here. And sometimes it's like, you know what? I think I just want to go sit over there. Or maybe I need to stand up. Standing up is actually something that really helped me in the beginning because I have a lot of nervous energy whenever I was first starting. So if I stood up, this was before I had my boom arm here. I don't know if you can see this in here. So I have my boom arm. I'm going to move it all around and then you won't be able to hear me. Like I have my mic on here. So I could move this and be able to stand up and I could adjust everything. Here, I'll just do it real fast. Here, I'm just going to stand up. I'm going to move back here so you can still hear me, you still see me. So whenever I would record, and I didn't do this in the very beginning, I literally just had like boxes stacked up. They were Amazon boxes that I would put my microphone on and I would stand at it and I would say, okay, because then when this feels more natural, I can move my hands around and it's like I'm talking to someone in a conversation and it doesn't feel as weird. It feels more natural. And then once I got that down, I started, not being so awkward about it because I got used to it. I got that nervous energy out, which sometimes just has to happen. So record yourself, then delete it. Record yourself, then delete it until you're like, okay, I feel like I'm wasting my time. I'm just going to go. And this is going to be it. This is my final take. And then maybe you listen back to it again and you're like, this was awful. I can do better. Then you can go and record it again. Y'all, I did this for the first, I want to say 2 or 3 episodes, like my introduction. I would just record it and delete it. Record it, delete it. This sounds like crap. Record, delete it until I was finally like, I'm never going to get over this until I just do it. So I did it and then I put it out there. Kind of had all the feelings you get whenever you launch something. And then now here we are. Like I just published 342 episodes. Like that's the episode that went live today. And I don't even, it doesn't phase you. So just know that it is hard. It's awkward in the beginning. Let's just all acknowledge that. But you have to find that area of just feeling comfortable with yourself. Most podcasters feel this way about their voice. Like 99.9% of people that come to me are very awkward with their voice and they say they hate the sound of their voice. So just know you are not alone. You are not alone in this endeavor. Yes, you are so welcome. Oh, Brian says, record yourself while working on something. Talk through the process of whatever it is you're doing can help get out of your head. 100% agree on this. Yes, this is definitely something that if you've never done this, when I do a lot of beta testing for the software companies that I use, like especially if I'm an affiliate for them, they'll reach out to me and say, hey, will you record yourself while you're doing a demonstration or doing a walkthrough of what you're using? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I will literally just speak out loud what is happening. And you're right, Brian. Sometimes it's just really awkward to say things out loud that you're thinking, but it does. It helps you process what's going on. It also helps you get more comfortable just speaking into a microphone or speaking in a room by yourself. Because again, we've already talked about this, is a little awkward, but you get over it. I promise you get over it. I would not be sitting here today if I had not gotten over it, but it is that learning curve of sitting in that uncomfortableness for a while, but you can get there. I promise you you can get there. Okay, so Darren says, I'm not sure yet. I just want to ask the question. So when I'm ready, I know when it is a great time to do it. Yeah. So Darren, if you're looking at different ways to repurpose your content, I would ask yourself, what are you most comfortable already doing? Do you like writing? Is blog posts going to be something? What I love about someone that's already been creating podcast episodes is you could take those audio files, turn them into transcripts, and be able to spin up some really cool blog posts or show notes for your podcast without starting from scratch. Like you already have the actual text audio file from a transcript that you could repurpose into a great blog post. And so that's a great segue from podcasting into blogging if you wanted to go that route. Video is a different monster. I mean, video is the reason why I like podcasting into video is I feel like whenever I've recorded, so if I'm sitting here, I'm recording a podcast episode, I'm looking at my notes, I'm reading it, and then it's done. I have a finished podcast episode. If I wanted to take some of that and turn it into a YouTube video, I already have that information in here. So it won't take me as long to record the video because the podcast is like my dry run. It's the dress rehearsal where I'm like, okay, I'm in full costume, I'm ready to go, and I can go ahead and do it and record myself on camera because I've already recorded the audio and I have the notes in my head. I have the things that I already said in the podcast. And so I can just tighten it all up to have it be a shorter YouTube video, because my YouTube videos tend to be anywhere from 5 to 25 minutes. I mean, I know it's a pretty big range, but the median in there is really about 12 minutes. That's the sweet spot for most of my videos. So if I record a 30-minute long podcast episode, I know that I'm not going to record a 30-minute video to upload to YouTube. I may just take the best pieces of that podcast, strip out maybe a lot of the stories, because that's what I love about podcasting. I can embellish and add stories and descriptive language that really brings the idea to life, or maybe it's stories from people in our community that I'm talking about, and I can really go above and beyond with that on the podcast. But on YouTube, it's just get straight to the point. Like, come on, we just need the answer. Like, I Googled this thing and I found your video. Just give me the answer for what I'm looking for. But also bringing people into, this is my personality. This is who I am. This is how I answer questions. This is just who I am. And then hopefully they would subscribe from that as well. So it's kind of above and beyond. Hopefully that gave you a little bit more, that didn't confuse you. Okay, so let's see. Brandon says, for me, one of the hardest things to overcome has been distinguishing the difference between pointless rambling versus quality conversation that people actually want to hear. So Brandon, are you already publishing content? Because this is a question. I mean, this is the hard thing that you have to do, but it's also about establishing your voice and your message. I think that there is a fine line between pointless rambling and quality conversation, but it all comes down to style. What is your style? And there's no, like, for anybody that's watching, anybody that's listening, there is absolutely no one right way to podcast or one right way to create content. It's all about style and how you want to do it. So there are podcasts that I love to listen to where all they do is pointless rambling, but I'm interested in the people, the host of the show. I'm interested in them talking. So I'm like, I don't care if they're talking about a story that happened 30 years ago. I care about it because I'm interested in the host. And then they also have quality conversations that you can tell are very strategic, very planned out. They have a purpose behind them, and that maybe they've even thought about it for weeks to create that piece of content. I enjoy that too. But there's just different styles and types. So don't get too hard on yourself about figuring that out. I think that as you continue to create content, you'll get feedback. Sometimes whether you want it or not. People have told me, especially on YouTube, man, the YouTube comments that come up on my videos, sometimes I'm just like, man, you've got some audacity to say the things that come out of your mouth. But some of it is very helpful feedback whenever it's like a constructive criticism of, hey, I really wish you would hone in on this specific piece of your content. The same thing happens with my podcast. People would say, I really enjoyed this one particular thing. Can you go deeper on this? And it could have been a side tangent. It could have been a random story that I told, and someone's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that you had that type of experience. Can you talk about that more? So it's just going to come with experience and time and getting to know your audience and understanding more about what they want and how you can serve them. But yeah, no, I think it is a hard line. So I'm just agreeing with you. I don't have all the answers. I will agree with you though that it is hard to distinguish that part. Great tips. I would like to put together a PDF and share it with people if that's a good thing to do. Yes. So Darren, I don't know if you're into email marketing, but this would be a fantastic way for you to start building your email list. Let me know in the comments if anybody has questions about building your email list, what that looks like. I do have several videos on my YouTube channel that are about getting started with your email list. But yeah, I think that if you already have existing content, especially when you can go back and look at those 13 episodes that you have, look at which ones have performed the best. that has the most downloads, it has the most listens, however your podcast hosting provider categorizes those, and looking at them and seeing which one is really taken off. How can I capitalize and repurpose that strategy too? Yeah, I think that's great. And I just did a recent YouTube video about talking about a freebie in a podcast episode, which it's more for whenever you're a guest on someone else's show, but you may find that helpful if you wanted to get started with email marketing and what that could look like. The more you do it, the better you get. After filming 150 videos and 20 podcasts, I'm finally getting comfortable with it. It just takes time, and some people are natural at it. Others take time. Yeah, totally agree, Buick Outdoors, because this is something that I am a natural extrovert. Like let's get into the psychology of being a content creator. I'm an extrovert. I don't have a problem talking to strangers. I like to get to know people in person and network and do all these things. I've emceed like conferences and been on stages. All of these things were part of who I was, like coming into being a content creator. But it was so awkward when it was just me and a microphone, and all I had to do was hit record. And so, I mean, it takes time to feel comfortable. And I mean, I've been doing, let's say, for example, live streaming. Live streaming was a totally different monster. Oh my gosh. I still remember it was 2016. I've told this story before, but I was in my office and I had my phone. It was just like this. Of course, it was not. It was like an iPhone 4, iPhone 6. I don't even remember what it was. But I was on Periscope. Probably don't even remember Periscope. It's like since been gone. It's basically the Facebook Live before it was Facebook Live. And I remember hitting live and I was shaking. Like the phone was like this the whole time I was recording, because I was like, okay. And then I want to say this. And I was sweating. Like I remember I had shorts on and I like stood up from my chair and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like sweating everywhere. It looks like I peed in my chair because I was freaking out, because it was just new and it was so nerve-wracking to do it for the very first time. But then whenever I did it, here we are like 6 years later, and it's not as hard anymore. It's still nerve-wracking sometimes. And oh my gosh, I've done interviews with people that I consider celebrities and mentors, and I still like freak out and get shaky and get super nervous, but I don't feel like I'm going to be a complete failure anymore, because I've like really built this, I guess, the skills of showing up, being behind the microphone, being on camera, and it's a lot more comfortable now. So it absolutely does get easier the more you do it, but you got to rip off the Band-Aid and do it for the very, very first time. And then just say, okay, I did it. I never have to have my very first recording again. Next time it would be my second recording, and then my 10th recording, and then my 200th recording. And then you'll get a lot better. So yeah, especially recording by myself, to note above. Yeah. So Brandon's going back to, he's talking about pointless rambling versus quality conversation. I think that you got to land the plane, right? So if you're starting, and I don't know what type of content you're creating, Brandon, if it's educational, if it's entertaining, if it's related around business, if it's around a hobby that you love, and you can tell me in the comments what your content is about. But I think that you'll find that line. It's kind of like when you're in a conversation with someone and you're listening to them. This is really funny. I'm not going to call out somebody. I was just thinking of someone in my personal life. I'm like, I'm not going to call people out right now. It wouldn't be good to have it on record. But there are people that are in my life, and I'm sure you have these people too, that you're in conversation and you recognize that rambling. You're like thinking while they're talking, what are they even talking about? Like, I thought we were talking about something else, and now they're like 4 subjects removed from what we initially started talking about. Like, what are they actually saying? So if you go back and you listen to your audio clips and you have that same like, what are you talking about? What is this? If you have that reaction to yourself, that's pointless rambling. That is. And it also, so we talked about you should record yourself and then stop, delete it if it sounds terrible. But going back and listening to yourself, you'll hear those stories where you're like, that's not relevant. Like, let's cut that piece out. Or you'll notice, like, that was really good. Let's talk about this for a second, because this can get a little awkward because people will think, well, that's kind of egocentric or that's really braggy. But I will have friends of the industry, we'll call them. It's other podcasters that say, damn, I listened to my last episode and was like, that was good. She knows what she's talking about. They're talking about themselves. And it's the biggest confidence booster when you're listening back and you're like, that was really good. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Like you're agreeing with yourself. It's this weird dynamic. Don't get me wrong. It's super weird. But when you have those, usually it's those moments where nobody else is listening. It's just you. You're listening back to your audio and you're like, that sounded really good. Follow those. Follow those. Like, note to yourself, well, it's because I was straight to the point, or I told a funny joke in there and I felt like it landed well. Like, whatever those qualities are for your style, pay attention to that. And then maybe write some notes down about it and say, how can I recreate that again? Okay, y'all are having some great questions today. So Aaron asked, do you have recommendations for the best podcasting equipment? My audio doesn't sound great with my Blue Yeti, but my clients with no mic sound great. Aaron, question about where you're recording. This could be, because I have a Blue Yeti. It's actually right over here on my shelf. I still have all my equipment. Everyone's like, you have too much, you should sell it. And I'm like, no, it's kind of like, I'm a collector of microphones, apparently. Hang on, my chair. There we go. Does that ever happen to y'all? My office chair, I felt like I was slowly going down. I'm like, what's happening? I feel like the microphone's getting further in front of my face. But Blue Yetis are notoriously bad for echoes because it's a condenser microphone and not a dynamic microphone. So this mic that I have right here, I could record on this and record on my Yeti, and you will hear all the noises in this office. This office echoes. You could probably hear it a little bit, but not as bad as if I were recording. I have tile floors. I have windows right here. I have glass doors just on the other side of my camera here. There's a lot of reasons for it to echo in here. And with the Blue Yeti, you can hear all of those. But if I take my Blue Yeti and I go record in my closet, which I have on multiple occasions, or I record in my bedroom, which has carpet and lots of furniture, there's no echo and it sounds fantastic. So it's really more about the environment that you're recording in. If you're getting a lot of echo or it just sounds really bad, I would look at the settings. Hang on. Let's look at this. Uh-oh. Okay. Let's look at this. So this is a Blue Yeti for anybody that's wondering. This is it's so pretty. I love this. Few things, Aaron. I have a YouTube video on how to set up and look at your settings. But for this one, you want to make sure that the blue is facing you. So if you have it tilted this way, that is the right way. You don't want it to where you're recording and this is facing you. That's not the proper way to use this microphone. And then there's also the settings on the back. So y'all see this? For me, I am super loud. So this is my gain right here. I can't even have that in the middle because I'm that loud. So this is the very bottom. This is like maxing it out. I typically have mine about, a little above 25%, probably 30%. This would be 50. I'm too loud for that. And I have to move too far away to not blow out like my audio. So that's what I would do. These little buttons, I usually do I think it's the cardioid. It's the upside down heart. Whoa, which you can see there. That is the one that I used whenever I was recording by myself. And then you can adjust this in different ways. Go watch my YouTube video that I have on this though, because it would be super, super helpful. But again, if you're recording in an area that has tile floors or doesn't have a ton of furniture, then it's going to be an echo. So I would recommend recording in a different room in your house or somewhere else just to test to see, is it actually your Blue Yeti or is it the environment that you're recording in? Great question. Oh, so I didn't even tell you, like, first of all, before you go and buy anything else, I would recommend if there's another place in your home or wherever you're recording that won't have that type of effect, whatever the sound is. So test it out in a few different places. And then if you really wanted to purchase a new microphone, which I typically don't recommend unless you're just like, I can't do this. I can't record in my closet anymore. I want to record at my desk. Look for a dynamic microphone. And there are a lot of recommendations out there. I have several that you can go on my YouTube video and see as well. Great question. Okay, I'm recording through Descript and Zoom. I wonder if you are having issues. Are you having the same issue when you use Descript and Zoom when you do it? Because I wonder if it's the recording software. I don't know. I wonder, or like, is it just in Zoom or is it just in Descript whenever it sounds worse, I guess? Oh, you're so welcome. So your entire house is wood. Yeah. So, and I get this. There's a lot of people that will say, I bought this microphone. I got a Blue Yeti. And then I realized it sounds awful. And the only place it sounds great is in my closet, which is the case for me. It's typically in my closet or in my bedroom is the only place that I can record and it sounds decent. And it's the environment. So this microphone right here is a Rode Procaster, but it comes with a price tag. It's more advanced, more expensive, and I have it on a boom arm, which is also expensive, and I have it on it is an XLR microphone. So for those of y'all that have a USB mic, like this is what you'll have, right? You'll have a USB. You can plug a Blue Yeti straight into a laptop, straight to a computer, and be able to use it that way. This is an XLR cable, meaning it has the prongs on the end where you couldn't just plug it into a computer. You have to plug it into a mixer or an interface in order for it to work. So I have my boom arm, the Rode Procaster, and then I have a Focusrite is the brand for my interface. And then I plug that into my computer. So it's more pricey. It definitely is, but I love the sound of this microphone. I've had it for 2 years and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. So let me see. I saw some other questions up here. Y'all are just on fire with the questions today. I love it. Love it. Best thing to do is to keep publishing your content and get as much practice in as possible. Worst thing that'll happen is people won't watch or listen to certain episodes. Y'all, this has happened to me. This has happened more than I should probably admit. And the worst is whenever you go live and nobody shows up and you're like, well, I should sit here because it takes people like they need to get the notification and it takes them a second to hop on. It's the worst. And you feel kind of embarrassed. And you're just like, even right now, I'm getting red thinking about all the times that I've shown up on Facebook Lives where I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm sitting here talking to myself until someone else comes. So yes, it like be prepared for the awkwardness. It shows up and manifests in really weird ways sometimes, but it's totally worth it whenever you do connect with like today. Today wouldn't have happened without all of you wonderful people being here and sharing your questions, asking your questions, and just all your different comments. This is what it's about for me, is hanging out with all of y'all. Yeah. Jump in, be weird and awkward. It'll pan out the more you do. 100%. And people are attracted to those natural qualities that you have, even if it is awkwardness and clumsiness. And like for me, like I have this crazy Texas twang where I say weird words and people will call me out on them. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I said that weird, but okay, well, this is who I am. So even with my loudness, like I'm very loud and I don't try to change that about who I am. I change my equipment because even the gain on this microphone is turned down because I'm so loud. I would much rather show up, use my hands, like all my gestures, the way that I speak naturally. Because if you see me out in the wild, you see me in person, this is how I speak. And so I don't want to change who I am to adapt to my content. I want it to be the other way around. I want to adapt my content to who I really am. It makes things so much easier. So yeah, after you have several videos, podcast, and you're able to see and look at the data and see where people click off and what episodes, 100%. And this is why I love statistics. I love information when it comes to understanding your content. I use my YouTube analytics, my podcast stats. Plus, I use Buzzsprout. They're my hosting provider, and they actually offer global stats. So they publish the data for their, hundreds of thousands of podcasters that are in their network. So it'll tell you, okay, in the month of, let me see. So it would have been, they published February stats already. So February 2022, they will publish, this is how many downloads across all Buzzsprout podcasts that they were given. So you can kind of measure, well, where do I fall in this? And if y'all have never seen this, here, I'll just pull it up. And actually, I shared my screen earlier, but I haven't even gotten there because we've had such great questions. So let me pull this up and take this down. So you can go to buzzsprout.com/global_stats. If y'all can see that up here at the top. And you can see, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see what success looks like for a podcast if you're publishing and in the first 7 days you publish an episode and you get, look at this. If you get 29 plays in the first 7 days, you're in the top 50% of their podcast, of hundreds of thousands of podcasts. Like, you're in the top 50% if you're getting 29 plays. If you're getting 90 plays, you're in the top 25%. This is crazy, right? Because everyone's always like, oh, I don't have 10,000 downloads, so I'm not in the I'm like, well, I don't either. I don't have 10,000 downloads per episode. Are you nuts? No, I don't have that either. So I like to have this reference from other people. And so looking at your stats and your numbers, like, I cannot recommend it enough. I feel like we need to do another deep dive on everything that I look at, because quarterly stats are coming up. We're coming up on the end of the first quarter of 2022. And that's really when I dive into the numbers for sure. So weekly meltdowns when starting out is normal. Okay. Whew. Also, I'm making horror and true crime content. That is a tongue twister. I cannot say that. Yes. Weekly meltdowns. Daily meltdowns are allowed. Hourly meltdowns are allowed when you're first getting started, because y'all, it's new. It's new. Like, there's nothing else in life that prepares you for creating content unless you are a child right now who is constantly making TikToks. Like, I mean, they're going to be prepared for creating content in their future, but I didn't grow up doing this stuff. I didn't grow up recording myself. I'm not a musician. I'm not a singer. Thank goodness. Let's just sit on that idea for a second. I am definitely not a singer. So I didn't know what recording myself was like, and listening back to it and cringing and saying, oh my gosh, is that really what I sound like? I don't like it. I don't like, let's just, no, it's normal. Totally normal. Brandon, you are among good company here. And I'm glad. Yeah. So horror and true crime content. I can tell by your picture. I mean, I like it. I like it, but I don't like horror and true crime. So I'm just going to be really honest with you. I like that this is your topic. I am not in your ideal audience. So that also helps in giving you that feedback we were talking to Daniel earlier about, is I can give you advice on creating content, but I can't tell you whether it's good or not, because I don't listen to that. I can't. There's too much craziness going on in my head. I don't need that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The meltdowns happen a lot. Really helps you detach from the outcome too. It's valuable and someone will benefit. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank y'all so much for all y'all great questions today. So let's see. Oh, we have so many more. Where do you place your show notes on Buzzsprout? So I did a YouTube video. I was going to call you Darren, that was recently about how I do all of my show notes. So because there's two different ways you can look at them. Show notes, which some people will call what you see like on your phone when you're listening to a podcast. Those are episode descriptions in my mind. That's what I call those. And then show notes for me are what live on my website. So go to today's episode, crystalprofit.com/episode 342. Those are the show notes for today's episode. And now you're wondering, where do you place your show notes on Buzzsprout? It would be what you see in the episode description. So let me pull up Buzzsprout real fast and I'll show you. So like today's podcast like, this is my Buzzsprout account. You can see, like, I'm logged in here. Like, this is the title. And then this down here is my episode description. And this is what you could call your show notes, but this is where it goes in a Buzzsprout episode. So if you go up to edit, you see the title and then the description right here. This could be your show notes. But what I was talking about earlier when we were talking specifically to you, Darren, about repurposing your content, I was more speaking to this. Like, this is my full blown show notes. And like I said, I have, if you go to my YouTube channel, and go to my video section, and there's like the little search button, go type in show notes and you'll see all the different content that I've created because I've done walkthrough tutorials how I do this. So this is the same information you just saw in Buzzsprout because I embed this code on my WordPress site. And then I also do a little bit more blogging here. And then if I have a great resource that I mentioned in the podcast episode, I'll link to it below or additional podcasts. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if that answers your question. Do you edit in Descript? I'm used to Audacity, so I'm just using the software for my transcripts, which is kind of a waste. Yeah, Amy, I mean, if you're using Descript, I would recommend if you're going to pay for Descript, I would recommend using it for audio too. I would. I mean, I think that it would be worth the learning curve, but this is also how I look at software. Like, if I'm paying for something, I want to see how can I get the most out of it. And I don't think that Descript is good for just using it for transcripts. You could use something like Otter, OTTER.ai, Otter.ai. That's what I use for my transcripts. I have used Descript in the past, and it's something that, like, I'm an affiliate for Descript. It's not one that I use on a regular basis simply because I haven't sat down and learned how to use all of the different aspects of what they have to offer. So for anybody that's not familiar with Descript, they have audio, like recording and editing. They have video recording and editing. So it's a pretty robust tool, but I haven't sat down and learned all the different facets of it because I'm kind of in my own groove. I'm like, I use Hindenburg for my audio and I use Camtasia for my recording and editing. And I just haven't sat down to learn all the things that Descript does. But I do know that's a really cool tool. And I love that you can edit it like a Google Doc. Like, you can edit your transcript like a Google Doc and it will take out all of your all of your filler words. Like, I say so a lot when I'm recording. I'll say the word like too much. I was about to say the word too. I actually just recorded a YouTube video. It's coming out tomorrow. And I said the word actually like 3 or 4 times. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to leave it in. I'm not even worried about it. But I could, if I was using Descript, go in and cut all of those out. So y'all have so many questions. This is awesome. So I'm going to wrap up just a few more, and then we're going to wrap up today's session. So you try use Voice Meter software. It's free software. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't even know about that. That's a great suggestion, Buick Outdoors. And Aaron, you can also look up Auphonic. So AUPHONIC, Auphonic. This is the audio adjustment software that I used. It's free as well. I think it's like up to 2 hours a month or something that you can use to help equalize your audio and make it sound better if that's what you need. And then also, if you're a Buzzsprout user, look into Magic Mastering. Magic Mastering is, they call it the Instagram filter for your audio. It just cleans everything up and makes it sound fantastic, which is what I do. I do very minimal editing on my audio in Hindenburg after I record it because I upload it into Buzzsprout. They apply Magic Mastering already, and it sounds really awesome. So I would look into Magic Mastering if you're a Buzzsprout user. Podcasting seems to be the norm, but where I'm from, no one does it. Not to ask, right with, relate to. So it's nice to have people to connect with on here. Yes, it's very hard in person. Yes, I'm so happy that you're here, Brandon. And yeah, just keep coming back and hanging out because we love to talk about all these things. And we'll tell you when you found your people, if we can talk about how awkward it is to record and everyone's like, yes, yes, we know it's awkward. Everyone hates their voice. Yeah, you found your people. Yeah, happy that you're here. Hi, Felicia. Happy that you're here. So Q&A, a bit random, but I'm stuck on a train for 6 hours and all the bathrooms are closed. Okay, well, yeah, okay. That's just a very, very random question. Okay, Darren, what was that link for the Buzzsprout stats with Buzzsprout? So let me put it in here. This is global stats for Buzzsprout. So buzzsprout.com/global_stats. I know it's hard to say it. It's a lot easier to read that one. Go here and you can actually go back. Let me pull it up again. You can go and look back to previous months if you wanted to. So if you've been publishing for like 6 months and you notice like, man, there was a real dip last summer or a few months ago, you could see like, oh, well, everybody had shorter or, a less amount of downloads at that same time, which I don't really get that too in the weeds about it. But you can kind of see like, oh, if you have this many plays, if 27% of your downloads are on Apple Podcast, but then 23 are on Spotify. And you're like, oh, okay, like that's pretty average for look, 111,000 podcasts. This is what they have. And this is active podcasts. So ones that have published in the last, I believe it's 30 days. Could be wrong about that stat. Don't quote me on it. But that's what they consider an active podcast. And then you can see all the other players that they have, the devices, how often people are publishing, the length that people's episodes are. This is another tool or reason why I use this tool. As people ask me all the time, well, what's the right amount for like the length for me to publish my episodes? And I'm like, well, there's no right or wrong, but this is typically, more than 50% of episodes are between 20 and 60 minutes. So it's just a good reference. It's a good reference tool. Okay, let me see. Okay. I think this is going to be my last question. Let me see. Oh, no, I see just a few more. Okay. After Daniel's, we're done. Well, I'm cutting it off. I'm cutting it off. Don't worry about the meltdowns and awkward pauses when you're recording. You can always hit edit. Just keep pushing forward and you'll be okay. Totally agree. This is a great little pep talk. We've had lots of pep talks today. I think it's great. When creating lists of questions for interviews, how many should I ask? How long should an interview podcast last? This is subjective, totally subjective. Depends on your comfortability. Do you know the guest? How much do you really like want to get into it? And I recently had a podcast episode that was very different. It was like rapid fire. Like I think that she had probably 15 questions and she got them in a 45-minute episode. It wasn't, oh, let's go on a journey and let's like segue into this. Like it was, what's your take on this? What's your thing on this? Tell me what you think about this. And how is this applied to this? And tell me about like, it was very like boom, boom, boom. Cause she wanted to get all these questions in because it's her style. She asked these same questions to every guest that she has on or some iteration of them. That's the way that she produces her podcast. But for other people, maybe that's not your style. I will typically come to a podcast interview with a list of maybe 5 to 8 questions, but I let the conversation flow naturally. And my interviews tend to be anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes. It just depends. I try to keep it at about 60 minutes, like don't go over. The sweet spot I feel, which makes for great content, is about 45 minutes. If I can get it to about 45 minutes, I feel good because then I have the introduction at the beginning, then I'll have the interview, and then I have an outro at the end. So it will still leave that interview about 60 minutes or so once it's fully produced and published. But there's no right or wrong. I don't think that you can go. So pay attention to what you like. Like, what are your favorite podcast episodes? Are they an hour? Are they 2 hours? Are they 30 minutes? And just kind of go with what you already enjoy listening to or what other people in your same category would enjoy as well. Okay, yeah. So we answered that one. Yes, you did answer my question. Thank you. You're so, so welcome. Who would who would my target audience be if I have a sports podcast, but instead of just focusing on one sport in general, like they all do, my show ranges from high school to college and professional. Um, I mean, a sports enthusiast, that's really what I'm thinking that comes to mind. Who would my target audience be? So you're looking at high school, collegiate, and professional. So you would have to find your special take on it. Like, are you talking about the history of sports? Are you going over specific players and their stats? Are you talking about specific teams or rivals? Like, you got to find a theme that will really be, and we've talked about this before, your umbrella topic that everything you talk about in your content will fall under. So for you, if you have a bunch of general sports that cover high school, college, and professional, it's too broad. It's way too broad of a topic. I would recommend either focusing on one very specific location, right? So maybe like I live in Houston, Texas. This is the area of Texas that I live in. I could talk about local sports, and that could include high school, college, and professional because we have several universities around here. We have tons of high school football and we have professional. We have the Texans here. So that's one take on it. You could look at the location of the specific audience you're trying to reach, or I would narrow it down to a specific sport that is high school, college, and professional. So you got to bring it in a little bit more and tighten it up so you can decipher this is my specific target audience, not just an overall sports enthusiast, because it wouldn't entice me if I were a sports enthusiast to say, I really want to listen to that. I would be more interested in the person that says, this podcast speaks specifically to this area of Texas, and this is what we're going to talk about, and so on and so forth. So I hope that helps, Daniel. But yeah, y'all will have to come back next week. We do these live streams every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central, and I have gone way over my time, but this has been great. Thank y'all for all your amazing questions. I'm grateful you told us about this feature. I thought I was doing terrible, but I'm seeing the top 50%. Yes, 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 yes. Amy, it's been a while since I talked about it on the podcast. I used to do a monthly update of all the stats, but it got kind of cumbersome every single month. So maybe I need to do another one for the end of quarter one, and we can talk about these because it is. I mean, it was really reassuring when they first launched these. I was like, oh my gosh, because I think it was 25. Like that was the median was if you have more than 25 downloads in a 7-day period, then you're in the top 50% of podcasts. It was, wait, what? Are you serious? So yeah, it's great. I'm glad that it was helpful. Awesome, Brandon. I look forward to hearing from you. Y'all, this was so fantastic. I hope that y'all have a great day. We didn't even get to all the things I want to talk about. Go listen to today's podcast episode for the Profit Podcast, where we talked about how to promote if you're a guest on someone else's show. And I hope that you come back next week because, like I said, we do these every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central. And I hope that y'all have a great day. Thank y'all for being here today. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Bye, y'all.